Most people can lower their blood pressure naturally without medication. Here's how. First thing your doctor will tell you is cut the salt. And that can work. If it works for you, great. But there's something even better. Choosing the right salt. Potassium salts don't raise blood pressure. In fact, they lower blood pressure, and the food is still salty. There's a lot of different brands like New Salt and Fit Salt. I don't have a relationship with any of them. I don't sell any of them. I don't make money. So some people don't like the taste of potassium salt. No problem. You can mix some potassium and some regular sodium salt. Some brands already come mixed, like low salt. Or you can mix it yourself. You can do a 50-50 or even just 25-75. 75% your regular salt, 25% potassium salt already is beneficial. One randomized trial showed that replacing just 25% of your regular sodium salt with potassium salt lowered risk of strokes by 13% and risk of overall death by 12%. If you have kidney disease or if you're on blood pressure lowering medication, talk to your doctor before you start a potassium salt. Sometimes it can interact with meds. We can also get potassium from lots of healthy foods, like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, like oats, beans and lentils, yogurt. So make sure to include plenty of those foods in your diet. When they talk about the DASH diet for blood pressure, it's basically including these foods and avoiding junk. That's basically what the DASH diet boils down to. Junk food is the other big thing. Most of the salt we eat in Western society is not added at the table. It's not added during cooking. It's in pre-packaged, highly processed, junky foods. Baked goods, frozen pizza, lunch meats, potato chips, pretzels, TV dinners. Also eating out a lot from a food cart from a restaurant. We don't have control over how they're preparing their food. And they add a lot more salt because most people prefer that taste. So that's something to watch out for. Making your own meals at home, starting from scratch, from whole, healthy ingredients, is the biggest step to controlling your blood pressure. Okay, here are some specific foods that have been shown in scientific studies to lower blood pressure that most people don't know about. Garlic. When you crush garlic, it forms these sulfur compounds like allicin. Allicin is a molecule that gets formed in freshly crushed garlic that helps dilate your blood vessels and reduce blood pressure. A meta-analysis found that garlic reduces the higher value in your blood pressure reading, what we call the systolic blood pressure, by about 5 points, and your diastolic, the lower value, by about 2.5 points. In people with hypertension, it's even more effective. It reduced systolic blood pressure, the higher value, by 8 to 9 points. That's in the ballpark of some blood pressure meds. Now, some of these scientific trials use garlic powder, and some use a specific supplement called aged garlic extract, AGE. Most brands sell either one of these, the powder or the AGE, in a capsule or in a little gel. It's just easier to consume that way. I know this video is called Lower Blood Pressure Without Pills, so if you don't want to do it that way, if you want to do it with actual freshly crushed garlic, you can. Just bear in mind that the allicin in the garlic forms after you crush the garlic and then let it rest for a few minutes, for about 10 minutes, for those compounds to form. This is because the allicin is produced from other compounds in garlic by an enzyme, and this enzyme is destroyed by heat. So if we cook the garlic right after crushing, it destroys that enzyme, so allicin can't get produced. So this is why, to maximize the allicin, you want to let that garlic rest for 10 minutes or so after you crush it before you cook it. Also good to bear in mind, the garlic powder that is used to cook the regular garlic powder in stores, that's usually heat treated, so it's very low in allicin. It's not a great option to lower blood pressure. On the other hand, the garlic powder supplements that are made for this type of benefit, they're prepared in a way that preserves the allicin. Bottom line, you can reproduce this process at home by crushing, waiting 10 minutes, then eating, or crushing, waiting 10 minutes, and then cooking if you want. By the way, AGE, that other supplement I mentioned, aged garlic extract, also works for blood pressure. AGE actually does not contain much allicin, but it contains other sulfur compounds that also help lower blood pressure, so it does work. That meta-analysis I mentioned, they looked separately at the trials that used garlic powder supplements versus the AGE supplements, and both worked, and it was pretty close. Maybe slightly more potent for the garlic powder supplement. So garlic and garlic supplements are usually pretty safe, but if you're on prescription meds, blood thinners, for example, check with your doctor before starting. a garlic supplement, especially if you're going to go high dose. Okay, next up is hibiscus tea. So hibiscus is a plant and you can make a tea from it. One trial found that hibiscus tea lowered blood pressure by 7 points in people with mild hypertension or pre-hypertension, meaning that their blood pressure was between 120 and 150. So it wasn't even that extreme, but it was enough already to see the benefits. Then a meta-analysis confirmed these benefits across 17 trials, either with hibiscus tea or a hibiscus supplement. They both work. So these were hibiscus capsules that they used in these trials. And again, they saw about a 7-point reduction in the systolic blood pressure, the higher value in your reading, across all the trials averaged. In fact, the authors write very impressively that hibiscus induced reductions of blood pressure similar to medication. Also, the higher the blood pressure the person had, the stronger the effect. So the higher your blood pressure, the higher the potential that you're going to reduce it by more. And also a little added benefit, hibiscus also lowered LDL cholesterol. Okay, next up, some people are going to love this one. Chocolate, dark chocolate though, can reduce blood pressure by about 4 points. That's because cocoa, that dark chocolate is made from, is rich in polyphenols, these compounds that have antioxidant function and can help dilate blood vessels and lower blood pressure. These polyphenols help the production of something called nitric oxide, which is a molecule that helps dilate your blood vessels and reduce blood pressure. In general, the darker the chocolate, the better. Try to shoot for at least 70% cocoa. Another one is beetroot juice. So beetroot is a good source of nitrates, which can help dilate blood vessels as well. A meta-analysis published just last year found that in people with high blood pressure, beetroot juice lowered systolic blood pressure, that higher value, by about 5 points. Although the average over 24 hours was not significantly changed, and they recommended caution with their results. They say more trials are needed for beetroot juice. So this one is a little more tentative than the others. You can always try it out, see if it works for you. Here's something curious. In this meta-analysis, when they put all the trials together, they observed that trials giving people less nitrate level in the beetroot juice actually saw the largest reduction in blood pressure, which is kind of puzzling. So beetroot juice amounting to 200 milligrams of nitrates gave an almost 10-point reduction in blood pressure. I would be a little cautious again with this because the number of trials wasn't huge, so this might not pan out, but it's an interesting observation. It suggests that you don't need to crank it up. A glass or two a day is probably enough. If you're wondering how much nitrate is in my beetroot juice, it varies substantially from brand to brand, and some brands do report the content, or you can find it in their information. Okay, last one is berries. Not entirely consistent, but some trials report a benefit of giving berries on reducing blood pressure by about 2 to 3 points systolic. So another one to try and see if it works for you. Okay, exercise. Your doctor will definitely tell you to exercise, but which exercise lowers blood pressure the most? It turns out that it makes a massive difference. So walking, for example, lowers your systolic blood pressure, the higher value, by 3 points, lifting weights by 5 points, more intense cardio like running or biking by 7 points, and then the most effective is what we call isometric exercise, contracting muscles in place without moving. So hand grips, for example, lower systolic blood pressure by about 7 points. Leg extensions, just holding that leg extension, 10 points. And then wall squats, holding the wall squat, over 10-point reduction in blood pressure, systolic. One protocol for this, 2 minutes, hold that wall squat, few minutes of rest, do it again, 4 sets of this, and doing it a few times a week, 3 or 4. If it's hard to hold those 2 minutes, you can do shorter, obviously. You can also vary the angle. So if you can't hold that 90-degree angle for 2 minutes, that's pretty hard. Just go higher, just shallower squat and hold that. And then as you get better, you increase the angle. The beautiful thing about the wall squats is you don't need a gym. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need to pay anybody for anything. It doesn't cost a penny. You can do it anywhere. 5 minutes, you have a break from work, wall squat. So all exercise is amazing for blood pressure lowering. Some are better than others. By the way, this effect of isometric exercise is sustained. It's not just right after the exercise. That's a common question, and it's a good question, and the effect is sustained. So if you do that exercise regularly, daily, or a few times a week, your blood pressure should come down consistently. Okay, what if you can't exercise? Maybe you're frail, maybe you have some condition. Just getting up and going for a brisk walk, sitting less over the course of the day, has been shown in randomized trials to help lower blood pressure. One trial reduced people's sitting time by 30 minutes a day. Just getting up at regular intervals and walking a little bit or using a standing desk, that was enough to lower their blood pressure by 3 to 4 points. Another crucial thing to bear in mind is that weight loss consistently lowers blood pressure, losing excess fat. And specifically, it's about 1 point of blood pressure reduced per kilo lost. So, an interesting equation to bear in mind. Okay, let's talk alcohol, caffeine, and smoking. And some surprises, some interesting surprising facts here. So, cutting back on the booze can help you lower your blood pressure if you drink a lot. People who drink more than 2 drinks a day, by cutting back, they can reduce their blood pressure by 5 to 6 points. People who drink less, 1 or 2 drinks a day or less, not much difference is seen cutting back. There might be other benefits, but for blood pressure, not a ton of benefit there. Coffee and smoking, they are more variable. So caffeine can affect your blood pressure, particularly if you're not a regular coffee drinker. But with the habit of drinking coffee, the effect tends to go away. You tend to habituate, and coffee doesn't impact blood pressure much anymore in most people. Smoking also not a very consistent effect. It depends a bit person to person. Obviously, lots of good reasons not to smoke, but blood pressure, it can vary. And in some people, cutting back on tobacco might not lower your blood pressure much. Stress and sleep issues can definitely affect your blood pressure. How do we solve that? Meditation, mindfulness practices have been shown in randomized trials, actually really interesting, to lower your blood pressure chronically. A meta-analysis of randomized trials found that both transcendental and non-transcendental meditation can have this effect, and the effect seems to be a bit more consistent on non-transcendental meditation. As far as I know, transcendental meditation is a specific type where you repeat mantras, and then non-transcendental meditation is pretty much everything else, the breathing techniques and everything else. It's a bit more common. And the non-transcendental meditation lowers blood pressure in these trials by about 4 to 5 points systolic. Pretty respectable for something that doesn't involve popping a pill and doesn't cost anything. I guess maybe you pay a teacher, but these days you can learn meditation online for free. Are you even sure that your blood pressure is high? Because there's a lot of mistakes that people make when measuring their blood pressure. Even doctors make these mistakes. I covered all of them in this video right here. And here's a lot more on salt swaps, the best salts to control your blood pressure. Check them out. I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.